The Bihar elections just got over, and as per usual, the parties that failed to make a majority have raised allegations of EVM fraud. We ran the electoral votes through the Benford's law, and our analysis suggests that there has been no EVM fraud or no electoral fraud as such. Happy Diwali and welcome to CodeSpace. So Ravi, I just wanted to quickly brief you about what this Benford's law is.
Before we do that, you are wearing a very politician-like kurta.
Well, it is Diwali after
Yes.
all. Right. Yeah. So let's just look at Benford's law. It's an observation about the frequency distribution of leading digits in many real-life sets of numerical data. All right. In sets that obey the law, the number 1 appears as a leading significant digit about 30% of the time, while 9 appears as the leading significant digit about 5% of the time.
That's so interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
So even for mathematicians, this is a little bit of a mystery and was a surprise when they actually found out.
Absolutely.
So all of the leading digits should actually match this graph. So basically they start matching this graph.
Right.
Let's look at some natural numbers.
Right.
So it can be things like population. So when they counted 3,259 instances of population
data,
they found that 33% of the time the population had 1 as
the leading digit. Amazing.
And only 2.2% of the time 9 was this thing. So if you look at just the population data alone, just by looking at it, you know that it is going to conform to this.
Wow.
Right? Okay. That being said, let's look at what another paper also suggests.
Okay.
Benford's law is problematical at best for forensic tool when applied to elections. Okay. Blah blah blah. We find that the conformity and deviations of Benford's law follow no pattern. For election data, we're saying that it is not a significant thing.
Predictor. You
it's
can't
not a
always
significant
say.
predictor.
Right.
If you cannot use this one, which works for other natural numbers, what else can you use?
Right.
I have read one other place where they're saying that instead of the first 2 digits, you use the last 2 digits, and the distribution should essentially be random.
Okay.
That's what that's what we are showing in this Excel sheet.
Okay.
So we have. I took all of the electoral votes. We took all of the electoral votes.
Yeah.
We counted the leading first digit.
Right.
Counted how many times it came.
Yeah.
I also put the typical Benford
percentages.
numbers.
Right.
If you look at the chart, it's so
surprising. Yeah, it just follows it.
It just follows it to the dot.
Right.
I mean, not to the dot,
yeah,
but you can see
very
closely.
close. Yeah. Totally.
Now, if you don't want to trust this,
Yeah.
I have also have a chart with the last 2 digits
Right.
and see the count of the last 2 digits.
Sure.
And they also follow a mean.
Very nice
They are random
spread.
across a mean.
Yeah. Very nice. So,
Right? Yeah.
so this is what tells you that probably there was no fraud.
There was no fraud. Yes. So you saw the output of our analysis. Stick around to see how we coded it up. So Ravi, the election results are out for Bihar, at least.
Yes.
So we'll just do a small exercise on extracting this data. I mean, I think in one of our previous episodes we discussed that now they provide data in Excel and CSV and everything.
Right.
But the latest result, the elections that have happened in Bihar, that has not happened. So let me just show you that. All right. So that's the Election Commission website. All right. What am I showing? Okay. So that's the Election Commission website, and you can see the results for. And you can see the results for Bihar,
Right.
and you can see overall how much everybody has won and everything. All right.
Yeah.
So we basically need to extract this data so that we can derive the Benford's first digit and the Benford's last 2 digits numbers, right?
Sure.
To see if some election, I mean, if there has been some sort of tampering or anything has happened with the EVMs or whatever. All right. Very fortunately, so basically I need to extract HTML data.
Right.
All right. So I'm going to. So, they provide all of this data in HTML. So you can go constituency by constituency and then extract all of the data.
Right.
So the idea for me, at least, the idea that I'm having is that we'll just extract the candidate names alone and the total number of votes alone. The total number of votes being the EVM votes plus the postal votes.
Right.
So once we do that, we just take the total votes,
Right.
put it through the Benford's law mill.
Right.
And see what comes out.
Sure.
Whether any fraud or anything has happened. We can, if it passes the smell test.
Okay.
At least that's the thing.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So now that being said, you can select the constituency over here. All right. So you can see that there are about 243 constituencies. After all, they were fought in 243 constituencies. So we can extract the data out of this HTML. So I'm going to use Python to extract this data. Let's look at the page source, all right? And if you look at the page source, I mean, let's say I change the constituency. So that constituency's data comes up, but the rest of the structure remains the same.
Right.
Now the data actually in the HTML page itself, let me make this a little bit bigger so that everyone can see, is posted at this location. All right. So this is where the data, that table that you see. So this table that you're seeing is rendered through over here.
Right.
So what I have done is I've just copied one of these,
right,
and I have pasted it over here, and I've put it in this temp.html, and I formatted it just so that everyone can see what the data looks like, right? Or at least what the table data looks like.
Right.
So basically, we want only the party and the total number of votes they have.
Correct.
Given, all right. So that's what I need to extract out of the HTML page.
Sure.
Okay. So how do I do that? I mean, basically the identifier of that would be this TD, this table data, this table data, and you will see that the only unique identifier among all of for just the party name is this style thing, right?
Okay.
So, but for the total votes, there is nothing that is unique that identifies it because it shares its style or that unique element of the style with another one, which is basically what is that? That's the total. No, that's the EVM votes. That's the EVM votes. So we basically have to skip this and consider only this one.
Right.
So as the first exercise, what we'll do is we'll parse this HTML.
Right.
We'll parse the HTML, and then we will extract this data, save it to a file.
Yeah.
That's what we'll do first.
Sounds good.
All right. So I'm going to start with a new Python, and for parsing into now I have the documentation and everything open on my personal laptop, so that I can basically look this up and see what it does and everything. All right. So first things first, we are going to have to parse this HTML. All right. We are going to have to read the HTML page, right, and then parse this HTML. Now, reading the HTML page, once again, they've made it a little bit easier for us because if you look at the URL structure, let me just copy this URL and paste it in this Python page. You'll see that this is the URL. Now, remember how I was talking to you about I can change the constituency and the page changes. They've put the constituency over here. So that was the 120 constituency.
Correct.
In the source itself, if you look at the constituency, I'm going to search with S04, that's state 04 or Bihar's identity. You can see that they have a hidden input field over here, and they have all the constituencies and their identities listed.
Perfect.
All the way. I mean, they're all alphabetically sorted, of course. So I've done the exact same thing. I've just basically copied that and I have put this into this Bihar constituencies text file.
Okay.
So I'm going to read through this text file.
Okay.
Take the constituency, form the URL. If you look at it, I mean, AC is equal to 70, but they also do S0470, and 70 being that constituency.
Sure.
So I'm going to basically replace that constituency with this one.
Right.
All right. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to declare this as a variable, and I'm going to say this is a URL template, right? And I'm going to replace this with CON, which kind of works like a variable, right? We'll call it election data save.py, where this CON is going to be replaced with whatever constituency is being evaluated for. Oh, I don't need a variable declaration here. All right. So I'm going to use the technique that you taught me last week. So with open whatever, right? I mean, it's called Bihar constituencies.txt. As I'm going to call it file object. All right. So now I can now the file is open. Now I can start reading it line by line. So where a line is equal to file object dot read line. So this basically reads one line and then keeps it in a line. So what I'll do right now is I'll say, now I need to basically split this a line, right? So a line or split values is equal to a line dot split by comma. Would that work? Okay. And yeah, so what is the first? So let's look at the constituencies text file. So the first one is the constituency ID. So I can say con ID is equal to split values of 0, and the con name is equal to split values of 1. Okay.
Right.
Now I can like start creating the URL. What's the URL? So the URL is equal to URL template dot format, and I can say constituency is equal to, right? Or yeah, constituency is equal to constituency ID. I think that needs to be an object. Let me just verify. Yeah. So that's the URL template dot format, constituency is equal to constituency ID. Yeah, just so that I can make it a little bit readable. Let me just print this URL and see what comes out. Okay. All right, let's open. Going to just move this over to the side a little bit so that all right. What is it called? Election data save. Okay, so yeah, so you can see that the S05, it got replaced, and this is what we get. But we're not looping through the file, we're just reading one line. So I'll just say while a line, which basically means go through these lines one after the other, and then I can do this one. And at the end of, oh yeah, I need the URL also to be formed, and at the end I can just simply say a line is equal to file object dot read line, right? So basically I'm reading the next line over here. Let me do another thing. Let me also trim it. So I think it's a line dot strip. Basically remove away everything, all the spaces and everything, in the sense that, I mean, even the enter keys, even the enter character would be part of the a line. So I'm just going to strip it. So now I have the split values, I have this, and I'm printing the URL. Let's see what happens now. So yeah, so there you go. So all of the constituencies. All right. Now I think it's okay for me to go ahead and hit that URL, right? Okay. Now before I do that, I'm going to remove everything. Just for now, keep it in a backup file, because I'm going to be hitting all of these URLs. I don't want to be hitting them over and over again, because we're going to be testing so many times, right? So I'll just hit them once. So I'll just hit one of the URLs, all right, and see how it turns out. All right. So how do I? So I'm going to do this using the inbuilt. I think it's called import URL lib dot request, right? So yeah, so URL lib dot request is the one that has that. Let me just verify. Yes. Okay. So now that I have the URL, I can say URL object is equal to URL lib dot request dot, it's called URL open, and then you can say the URL, right? So that's the URL object, or the remote object. Yeah. The contents of the file. So I'll just say file contents is equal to URL object dot read. Is that read line? No, I think it's just read. Okay. Now the read, I think it returns values in bytes, which will not work for HTML parsing. So I'm going to decode this using this method chaining, and I'm going to say decode this into UTF-8. Now let's just see what is present in the file contents. Alright, so that one URL will hit and see what happens. Let me also print so that we know what's happening. There you go. So that just basically bought everything and then printed it over here, including HTML. All of the table and everything that it has brought.
Right.
Alright, so now we have that. Alright, so now we are going to be hit. So before we move on, remember that whenever you're crawling these websites or whenever you are hitting a single service, a single service, you'll have to respect something called as the robots.txt. Alright?
Yeah.
And every website should technically maintain a robots.txt which contains instructions as to how many times you can crawl or hit R, or what is the time delay that you need to give. So I'm just going to see if robots.txt is available on this site, and you'll see that it's not there. Let me check this, and once again there is nowhere on the site is the robots.txt maintained. So what we'll do right now is just to be good to the server, once we have the file contents, we'll just give it a sleep. So I'll just say import time, and time has a sleep function, so I'll say time dot sleep, and we'll say 1 second. Well, let's sleep for 1 second before you hit the next URL. Now I know doing this over here would take a lot of time for us to extract the data, but that's fine. I can at least fast forward through the entire. I can speed up for viewers, I can actually speed this entire thing up.
Yep.
Alright. So that being said, now I have the file contents. Now we need to parse the file contents, right? The file contents would more or less look like this. I need to parse them. Now I know that you have spoken about Beautiful Soup, which is which is not an inbuilt Python library. It's a library that you need to install.
Right.
But the problem is once again it's a library, and it might happen that
something changes.
If you are watching this episode a few years down the line, then you are not actually looking at the most latest recent version of Beautiful Soup. So I want to do this using an inbuilt methods within or inbuilt functions within Python itself. All right. So for that, I can use the it's called the HTML parser. All right, and that appears in the So from HTML dot parser import HTML parser. So that's a folder, right? So from the folder we are importing a class. And the way you do it is using a class. Alright, and basically you will have to overload the methods of the HTML parser class.
Okay.
So I can say class, whatever my class, right? So I can say whatever my CS HTML parser. So I can code space HTML parser.
Oh, okay.
Parser, and I can say it takes in HTML parser. And I can define some methods that I'm overloading from the HTML parser.
Okay.
So I can say define, and I can say so the intention that I have over here is that I will look for this tag specifically. I'll look for the data, and then I look for the end tag. That's the intention that I have. Okay?
Right.
So I have this HTML parser, and so I can say, so you can see there are so many methods over here. So there is the start tag, there is the end tag, and then there is the data.
Right.
I'm only concerned with the start tag, the end tag, and the data part. So there are others also that you can use. So I'll say handle start tag, and you can see that it gives you these parameters. So you have the self, which is basically this in JavaScript or Java or whatever. Then you have the tag, which can be of type string. I'm going to remove that. And then you can have the attributes, which are tuples of lists of tuples. All right. And it returns null. So I'm going to remove all of that. These are the 3 parameters. So now I have the start tag, end tag, and the attributes. So the tag would be this, the attributes would be align, center, and style is equal to this one.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'll do right now is I'll just say, so I need the party name, right? So I'll just take this one. So if I need the party name, I know that the align is left and that the style is this.
Right.
So I'll just take this, which basically means it's the party, and I'll do this. So I'll say if so another thing you need to remember is that this HTML parser will go through the file line by line or character by character. So it basically runs through the parser from the top to the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if tag is td, yes, if it is the td tag, all right, find out what the attributes are. Basically, we need the attribute. Yeah. So, So if no, I can loop through the attributes. Attributes is basically a list of all of the keys and the values, right? So I'll say for an attribute in attrs. Do I have to capture all of the attributes? Yeah. So you have the style. So yeah. Yeah. So okay. So now I have the tag, and I need all of the attributes. In essence, I need the align value and the style value. So what I'll do is I'll just loop through all of the attributes, and I'll just store them inside a variable. Okay. Style value is nothing, and align value is also nothing. I mean, I know I'm not calling it none. I'm just putting it with blank. This thing, should I call them none?
Not it's okay. No,
yeah,
because it's a
okay.
string.
Because it's a string. So I'll just loop through all of the attributes. Align value is So if attr is if the attribute you know what? So if this attribute will basically be it'll be two values. I mean, it'll have 0 and 1. 0 being the name and 1 being the value. Okay, so I'm just going to use that. So if attribute of 0 is align, okay, and attribute of 1 is no, if it is align, then save it in the align value. So I can say align value is equal to attribute of 1. Okay, so now I have saved that. I'll do the same thing for the style also. So if the attribute is style, then save it under the style value. So now I have the attribute and the style value.
Right.
Now, if the tag is td, if the align value is left, right? I mean, because for the party name it is left, right? Yeah. So if the align value is left and the style value is this weird style, not weird style, I mean basically this style that identifies that tag, if it is this, then I know that it is the party name. Okay. So I'm just going to say print yes party name, and I'm just going to print what? Nothing. I mean, I'm just going to print let's just print the attributes, see what comes up. Nothing. I'm not doing anything over here. Okay, so now I have this HTML parser class. Now this parser class, I can declare a variable, and I can create an instance of this one. So I'll just say parser is equal to cs HTML parser. So it creates a new one. This file contents, I'm no longer going to print them. So I'll just say parser.feed file contents. All right, and this should essentially go ahead and should parse it and then put it through this and then print all of these values and everything.
Sure.
So I'm just going to make sure once again that I only have one constituency, because we don't want to process all the constituencies for now. Let's see what happens. So yeah, so there you go. Right? So yeah, so you have all of this. All right. Now here's the thing, right? Like I said, it runs through this one after the other. So as soon as it has as soon as it is done processing the start tag, it will come to the data tag. It will come to the data part of it, and we can like put it over here saying, and we can create a function over here called handle data, and this will have the this, and then it will have the data, which is basically a string. I'm going to remove all the identifiers because I don't need them. I don't need them for now. And over here, as soon as it is done with that handle tag, it will come to the data tag. So that's how it will switch between these functions, right? So here's the thing. I need a way for the data tag to say start capturing the data only now, because right now we have arrived at the at that data. I mean, I'm sorry, at the party name data. All right. So I'll just create a variable here. Say is party name tag. All right. And I'll say is false, which is basically true or false. And if it is left, and if the style value is this, I can say is party name tag is equal to true. So once I have done that, in the handle data, I can say if is party name tag, then go ahead and print the data. That's it. Oh yeah, you know what? I mean, because I have declared this as a class variable, I now have to refer to this variable as self dot, basically saying this dot. So if I, so now I can like do this. Now let's see what happens and whether it prints all of the data and everything. Whoops, see what's that? Oh yeah, you know what happened? Okay, so the first one, it hit Janta Dal. But after that, it started hitting all of the data. That's because we are never setting this is party name as false anywhere, because it remains as true. So as soon as it is done reading, I'm going to put it back as false, so that it only reads the names. All right. Now let's see what happens. So there you go. So that's all of the party. That's all of the party names for that one constituency. Okay. Now I need their numbers also. All right. And what are the numbers? So what are their numbers? I mean, sorry, what are their total numbers? This is their identification, right? I mean, first of all, the align is right, but the style is this one. But we also have to remember that they have this weird, I mean, they have another result also. Maybe we should go ahead and include that also. What do you say? It will just more data for the Benford's number, but Benford's law, but we can, maybe the viewers can do that as an exercise, see what comes out. All right. So I'm going to have, all right. So the strategy I'll use for this is that I'll just have a counter. Instead of saying true or false, I'll just have a counter. I'll start the counter here at 0, and once it 1 and then 2. Once it reaches 2, I know that I have reached this number.
Right.
Okay. So I'll just have a counter, and I'll say, what do I call it? A total counter, right? I mean, that's the votes counter. I'll say votes data counter is 0. If it is this, I'll say votes data counter is equal to votes data counter plus 1, right? Oops. The self is the same as this in Java or JavaScript, but that's how it works. All right. So I'll say if this dot votes data counter is 2, it means I have reached now the second thing, and I can say print data, right? And then I also have to say self dot votes data counter is equal to 0. I have to reset it back to 0. Okay. Now let's see what happens. Oh.
Hey, we got all the data.
Yeah, we got all of these things. So we have Janta Dal, this one. So let's just verify if this is true. What is this? Constituency 0195. All right, and this is constituency 0195. So let's see if this is indeed what we are seeing. So that's Janata Dal United 37,777, Rashtriya Lok Samta Party 1765, Lok Jan Shakti Party is 4972. There you go. So I think based on that, okay, let's look at just one more and then we can go on. Okay, so the CPIML is 86,327.
Wow.
CPIML is 86,300. So yes, so that way we have essentially captured the party and their votes. My intention is basically to just save them in a file and then save them sequentially in a file, and then we can do whatever we want with these numbers.
Right.
That's the intention that I'm having. Okay. So I have the data and this one. How do I save it? I can like maybe save it into an array, right? How do I save it into an array? What strategy do I use? Yeah. So maybe I can just say. So I'm going to say party data is equal to an array, basically just a string array. It will contain, and if this party name tag is true, then party data is equal to, I'll say where, should I put, party data dot append, right? No, or should I have the data stored here? Oh no, you know what? I can just have a variable here and I can like store it over here. I can just say party name is equal to data, right? The party name is,
Sure.
Self dot party name is data. When it comes to the votes, I know that now I have the votes and I can like basically move on and I can say, I can say party data dot append, and I'll just append a string basically, which is nothing but self dot party name plus, I'll just put a pipe symbol as delimiter and then plus this data. So basically this data I'll just append it here.
Sure.
Alright. So at the end of this party data should have all of the data for that this thing. And what we'll do is we'll just basically at the end of this feed operation, it should have everything. I mean, I've basically gone through all of this, and then at the very end, I can just say print party data. See what comes out. There you go. Alright. So it has all of this. So essentially, if I was to like put all of these guys one after the other,
right,
process them one after the other, I should now have an array containing all of this. Basically just primed to write to a file, and then I can do this. So let me just comment this out, and I can usually say with open results underscore, I'll just say results data dot text, and I'll open it for writing as results file object. Alright, put a context, results file object dot to say for data in party data, basically go through it line by line. Results file objects dot write, say write the data, also append a /n at the end. That should be it, right?
Yep.
So I should now have a results data.txt which contains all of this. Damn, that's so easy. Alright, now let's see what happens. Alright, so it says it's done. We have only done it for one constituency, but yes,
perfect.
Go ahead. So now we have one constituency data,
right,
where we have all the numbers and everything. Okay. Let's see. Now what do I do? now all we have to do is make it work for all of the other constituencies. So right now there's 1. Let's do it for 243 constituencies. Now here's the thing. This is going to take time for it to finish. So so it's, I mean, it was quite fast, but at the very least, it's going to take 243 seconds to finish.
Right.
So we'll just, I mean, for the viewers, we can just basically fast forward through this. We will like speed it up for you. But for us, if you see us watching us, if you see us get up and leave and do something else,
we can just quickly take a bathroom break while this happens.
Yeah. All right, it's done. So now let's look at the results. And if you look at it, it has printed all of them in this file. So essentially, there are 3,976 results that are being output here. 3,976 rows of results. Now the intention that I have is that I'll take it by. So hey, Ravi, it's done.
Oh, yes.
So it generated 3,976 rows of results.
Right.
So this is all parties across all constituencies.
Right.
All right. So we do not care about the candidate themselves. We only care about the party and their numbers. Also, in a sense, what I want to do is I want to ensure that I don't take what do you say? I mean, I do not consider parties that have not gotten any seats at all.
Right.
Okay, so I don't want to consider them at all in this thing. So things like Jai Mahabharat Party and all of those things. I mean, I don't want. They have not won any seats at all.
Right.
So I don't care for their Benford numbers at all. I only care for parties like the JDU, BJP, the RJD, AIMIM. The AIMIM and all of those things only I care about.
Right.
All right. So let's so right now we can like go ahead and start parsing and everything. But before we do that, we need to basically get a list of only those parties that have won it, that have won something. So let's just go back to the party-wise results on the Election Commission website itself, and you will see that these are the parties that have these are the only parties that have had some seats in the Bihar Parliament right now. So we take them separately and then we store them into a list and everything. Okay. So maybe I can, maybe we can do that later also. But let's start to now process it. Okay. Now let's start to process it. So I'm going to create a file called election data process. All right. And now that I have the results, I can like start processing it, right? So I can say, so I don't need the constituencies anymore, but I do need this one. I can say with this as say results file object. Variable names take such a long time for me to.
Right.
Yeah.
I just keep it simple. R or F.
It's
lazy.
Yeah, it's a little bit difficult to read, but you gotta do what you gotta do, man. Yeah. So let's take this results data.txt as results file object. Now I can just go through it line by line. So I'll just say line is equal to result.read line. So I have basically read the first line, and we'll do the same thing that we did in the previous one also. Let's put while a line, basically until it becomes null or until it doesn't reach a null condition. Say a line is equal to a line dot strip, right? I mean basically remove all of the white space characters. A line or split data is equal to a line dot split it based on that pipe symbol. Gotcha. And now so right now I have the constituency name would be the first one, followed by the constituency votes, right? So I'll just say votes of 1, right? And then at the very end, I can just say a line is equal to a line dot, the result file object dot read line. So basically saying go ahead and read the next line. Okay. Do I dare print it right now and then do it? Yeah, let me just print it just so that I know what's happening. Alright. So I have the constant name. Constituency votes. Oh no, this would be the party name. I'm sorry, not the constituency name. This is the party name, party votes or votes. Alright, let's see what happens now. I just want to sort of process it and see what happens. I mean, just want to print it and see what happens. Say Python 3 election data underscore. You know what? I think the file name is wrong. I'm just going to take a moment to correct it. Yep. So there you go. I mean, basically just printing out whatever we had on the file. Right. That's all. All right.
Okay.
So now here is what I want to do. Let's go back to the results. All right. So we have the results. Now I want to store. Okay. So what does the Benford law state? Basically, okay. Let's just read what the Benford law states, and then we'll take a stab at it. Okay. Where is it? Okay. I'm just going to refer to Wikipedia. All right. Benford's law is an observation about the frequency distribution of leading digits in many real-life set of numerical data.
Correct.
The law states that in many naturally occurring collections of numbers, remember that election data is not that natural. Essentially, it's election data, right?
Right.
Let's go ahead. In naturally occurring collection of numbers, the leading digit is likely to be small. Okay. In sets that obey the law, the number 1 appears as a leading significant digit about 30% of the time, while 9 appears as the leading significant digit less than 5% of the time. All right. So this is how it essentially.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So if you look at this graph, that's how the Benford's law is supposed to be used. Okay, and which is why we are using Benford's law to see if there has been something fishy. There is something fishy about the election numbers.
Right.
It is not. It is not. Like we discussed, it is not an indication, but at least it will give you a smell test. At least we can find out if the election data passes or the results data passes some kind of smell test. That's about it. Okay. So what we need is, let me just open a new spreadsheet. Okay. What we need is for every constituent, for every party. So let's say, for example, we take the JDU. Okay. For every party, we take all of the leading digits 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right. And we find out how many digits or what is the count of the numbers which start with 1. So let's say this is 12, this is probably 9, 6, things like that. So we basically want data like this. I'm just going to put in some nonsense data for now. But essentially we are looking for a pattern. We want to store data like this. That's the intention over here. So let me go ahead and start coding for that. Now that I have the data, I also have the party names and their numbers, and we only care about the leading digit of their winning numbers or their result numbers. That's all I care about. All right. So let's say I process. All right. So now I have the party name and the party votes. Let me go ahead and start taking. Okay. So which one is the digit? So I can say the digit is equal to party votes of 0. So I'll just take the first digit. So Benford's law basically applies to the first digit. So we can take the first digit. And now what I can do is, alright, so let me declare a variable here. This is basically going to be a dictionary that has key and values.
Right.
The key is the party name, and the value again would be a dictionary containing the numbers, containing the digits and their numbers and their counts. Right? So this goes into a key which contains this as the result, which instead itself is key and value. Right? So 1 appears 12 times, 2 appears. So this becomes key and their count, where the value is essentially their count. That's it. So now I'll have party and counts. I'll just create an empty dictionary, and now okay. So now I have the party name. Okay. Now what happens if the party name doesn't exist? Right? Doesn't exist. Already exist in the party counts. So if party name in party and counts, if it already exists in this one, then modify the existing data is what I'm trying to do here. So I'll just say count values is equal to party and counts of party name. Alright, you know what? I'm just going to comment this, and I'm going to put the else part first, and then I can proceed, so that because it will make a little bit more sense. The reason why I'm saying that is because let's put in the first data before I start accessing existing data, is what I'm trying to say. Does that make sense? Okay. Right? So if the data doesn't exist already, if that party name doesn't exist in the party and counts dictionary, then party and counts of party name is equal to, which it itself is a list of the digit, and what is the count of that digit? It just starts with 1. Okay, now let's assume that the first data that we encounter is for JDU, and the number of votes they have got is, let's say, to some random number. We have got something like this. In the list, in the dictionary, JDU doesn't exist. So it creates JDU as the dictionary key value, and it has to create a dictionary saying the digit 2 exists once now. This is what we are creating. It's clear now. All right. Now that's clear. So now, so I'll just create this. Why is it saying that this is an error? That's because there's nothing over here. All right. So now it has done. Now we have created the first data. If it already exists, then get this data. Okay. Find out if this digit exists in the value. If the digit in count values, if it exists in the count values, then count is equal to count values of the digit. Right? Count is equal to count plus 1. Set it back to the count values. Of the digit is equal to count. Set it back. Now, if it doesn't exist, then count values of the digit is equal to 1. Okay. So, so now what? So I'll just put the colon. All right. So let's just go back to that sheet. These are the numbers we are getting, right? So let's say I get 2, 3, 4, something like this, and then I get something like this. All right. What does a dictionary look like? So it will have JDU as the first one, and then 2 appears once. In the next iteration, it will say that, hey, JDU already exists. It returns this count values. It returns this value, which is once again a dictionary. It looks at the leading digit. The leading digit is just 1. All right. 1 doesn't already exist in this list. So it adds 1 and adds a count of 1. In the next iteration, it will see a 2. it will see, I mean, it knows that it's JDU, so it goes to JDU, takes this value, sees that 2 already exists, increments this counter, and then proceeds with the next row. So that's essentially what's happening with this. So at the end of this, I should have a list of all of the parties and all of the counts that they are having, right? Yes. Yeah, is that it? Is that it really? Okay. Now let me just see what happens if I print it. So for party names in party and counts, so I'll do this. Print party name. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to call it party name. So print the party name. So it will have what? It will have the value, right? Count values is equal to party and counts of party name. Get me this party name. Hey, you know what? Let me just go ahead and sort this first. Should I sort this first? Yeah, I should say sorted of party and counts dot. Oop. Alright, so that I can sort it by the name.
Okay.
Sorted by the name. So now I have the count values. And I can start printing the count values. I can say for count in. Once again, I'm going to sort the counted values because it will be in any order, in the order that it sees it in the results file. So we'll sort it once again. Count values dot keys. So I'm basically sorting the keys, and then I can just say print. So that's the keys. Oh yeah, that's the key. So that's the count key, not the count itself. So this is the. I'm just going to call it C key, or okay, I'm just going to call it key. Key. I'm just going to indent this just a little bit, right? Because I'm printing it after the party name, so that the party name appears and then there is an indentation and this appears. Key followed by the value. The value is party and count values of the key. That should be it. Now let's see what happens. There you go. There you go. So that's basically it. So
wow.
that's Benford. That's Benford's number. So we are basically ready to put this into a graph, and then we can go ahead and start we can see whether they match Benford's law or not, right? Okay, but like I was saying, I don't want to process all of them because Bharat Bhrashtachar Mitao Party and all, they have not won any seats. So I don't much care about what their numbers are. I only care about the ones that have won seats. So for me to do it, I must basically filter all of them and put only those parties that have won. Correct? So what we'll do is we'll just put this into Excel. Or we'll just put this into a spreadsheet, and we'll put them all into a unique list. I'm just going to paste it here. I'm just going to paste it here, and this has this wonderful thing where I can say, yeah, the next column is basically this one. So now I have the party names and their votes, right? I have the party names and I have the votes. All right. Just going to copy this party names into a new sheet, just the party names, because my intention is to go ahead and sort them first. So what I'll do is I'll first sort them. Data sort ascending. So now I have this one, and now I'll go ahead and filter them. So I'll say, let me just expand this a little bit. So the way to filter them or to get only unique values is to basically select this. I can say more filters, advanced filter, filter from this, not this, man, the entire thing. Okay. filter all of these options, copy result to a new column, copy results to, let's say, the C column, and no duplicates. All right, now if I do this, hold on, instead of this I can just say A to A, right? Why do I need to do this? Let's see what happens. Okay, so now there you go. So those are the unique party names.
Yep.
Okay, let's see how many parties have done this. Okay, so 213 parties. 213 parties. Let's just look at some of these party names.
Sure.
And you'll see, how weird something is. I think one thing, I was looking at this earlier, the Plurals party.
Yeah.
I've never heard of them.
Right.
Sathi और आपका फैसला party. Yeah.
That's the SAF party.
Yeah, that's the SAF party. Sathi और आपका फैसला party.
Yeah.
Republican Party of India, Republican Party of India, A Republican Party of India, Athawale, Republican Party of India, Rashtriya.
Right to recall party.
Right to recall party.
What do they want to recall, I wonder?
Why create a party around just one issue? What do you expect?
Yeah, that's so interesting. Jago Hindustan.
Jago Hindustan Party, Jagruk Janta Party, Jai Hind Party, Hindustan Sampurna Azad Party.
Sampurna
Azad. Not in parts, not in piecemeal. They want Sampurna Azad.
Fauji Kisan Party bhi hai.
Fauji Kisan Party is there. All right, good intentions. I agree with this one. Garib Jan Kranti Party, Garib Jan Shakti Party. All right, enough of this. So basically, I just want to create a list of all of the parties that have one seat. So let me just go over here. I'll search for them and I'll basically take them from the Excel. I know this is the Kashsheel Insan Party.
Yeah,
They're an
VIP.
NDA ally, by the way. Yes.
VIP.
They won 5 seats. Yeah. All right. So now we have the party with seats. I don't want to sort of go through all of them. I'll just comment this for now. I'll leave it as commented. Let's say party name in party with seats. So I have this. Now let's see what happens. This should print only those that have. Okay, so we got no weird key errors or anything, right? So I think we are good. So right there we have all of the data that we need. Right now we are actually good to go ahead and put this into an Excel sheet and see what the graphs look like.
Yeah.
So you want to go ahead and do that? Oh, hey, before we do that, let's also take a total of all of the votes that they have got. So this is party and counts, and we'll say all party counts. Right, so basically this will contain all of the numbers. I mean, basically just the digits and the counts. That's all. So instead of things like okay, I don't want this anymore. I can Control F for it. Don't save it. Yeah. So instead of the party name, we'll just have the counts. We'll have a list with just the counts. So I have the all party counts here. So after I have added it to the party, I can also do this small thing where I can say all party counts. If the digit in all party counts, if it exists in the all party counts, then the count is equal to all party counts of the digit, right? Count is equal to count plus 1, and then all party counts, or should I just call it all counts, is equal to count. All right. Now if it doesn't exist, then all party counts of the digit is nothing but 1. So that happens, right? Now at the very end of this, I can say print this one. Oh, just print for key in all party counts. I'm going to sort it. Say sorted dot print the key followed by a dash followed by all party count of the key, right? So this should give us all of the party counts. What is that? Yeah, I think we're good now. So there you go. So that's all of the party counts. All right. I think now we are ready to go ahead and start plotting this as a graph in Excel. So I'm just going to quit both the windows. All right. So now I have that. Let me just open a new window. Expand it just a little bit and start taking out the data and then putting it. All right. Let's take the AI-MIM first. And let's put their digit followed by count. Let me bold this, center this, put the data. Oh yeah, you know what? I'm just going to print it out with tabs instead of this weird thing. All right. So nothing. So I don't want this, and I'll put +/t. So that I can just go ahead and directly paste it onto Excel instead of doing all of this, right?
Nice.
Oh, it's not an int, it seems, apparently. Okay, so I got to convert everything into a string, which is easy in Python. All right, so there you go. So now let's take AI-MIM, put their data in I keep saying sheet, but damn it, man. I keep saying Excel, but it's not Excel. It's LibreOffice. So now I have this. Let's put a chart and see what happens. I'm going to select this, insert chart, and yes, next. This one, the data series. Remove the digit. Only give me the count, and then finish. So now, if you look at the what did I do? Oh, come on. So there you go. So this one, obviously, like we discussed, it does not. If you take a look at just one party, this is the AI-MIM. They do not conform to Benford's law. All right. But let's take another party also. Let's take the Bharatiya Janata Party. I think. All right. So yeah. So if you're only watching this part, please do not construe it as the EVMs being rigged or anything. It's just that there is not a lot of data to go by. Once if you look at only individual parties. Yep. The AI-MIM, for example, only stood in 20 seats. So that's not at all enough for you to come up with a good Benford's law number. BJP, even though there are 243 constituencies, only stood in 115 constituencies, which once again is not even 115. I think 110 constituencies, which is not at all enough for a big data set, especially things like this thing. So this is not particular to AI-MIM and this thing. It's particular to everyone. So let's take the Indian National Congress, for example. So let's take them and see what happens. Once again, it looks like this one. Hey, hold on. I got to change the series also. How do I do that? Okay. All right. So I'm just going to remove this just for a second. And I'm going to select until 10. Now I'll say insert chart. I'm sorry I have to do this over again because I saw that some of the data was missing and everything. All right. So let's do this one. All right. So this is more better for us. All right. So there you go. So that's how the INC's numbers look. Let's look at I think JDU, which had like the highest number of seats with 75 seats. The Janata Dal. No, I'm sorry. That's the RJD. That's the RJD. But let's look at JDU's numbers because we have that handy right now. Once again, it doesn't conform to Benford's law because there are not enough seats. The JDU only fought in this thing, and the numbers don't conform to Benford's law, even for these guys, right? Okay. First of all, let me remove this data, paste it back. Okay. Even for the RJD, it doesn't conform. All right. However, here is the most surprising part. Let's look at all of the total numbers. Now that you have the total numbers of all the parties across all the states, so 3,976 numbers, if we put them, then it starts following the Benford's laws.
Wonderful.
This is wonderful. Yes.
Yeah.
So now this is how we can like probably say there was nothing suspicious happening. This was one way of doing it.
Right.
Another way of doing it is through the last two digits. All right. So basically, what should happen is that if you take the last two digits of the of the numbers, then they should be randomized across a certain mean. If you do that, then it will mean that it's not then the numbers are less suspicious in the sense, I mean, they're not suspicious at all, or there has been no rigging or anything that is happening. No fraudulent data, or nothing fraudulent has happened. Anyways, I'm struggling to find words, but that's okay. So I've opened a new sheet in preparation for getting the last two digits.
Right.
See, the good thing about this program is that all I have, I mean, because I'm, where is that process? Yeah, so because I am taking the digits over here, I can decide which digits to get over here itself.
Right.
So here I'm getting the first digit, and we just saw that it only conforms if I have given enough amount of data, 3,976 votes, I mean lines. Right. But if I want to confirm individually if the parties have confirmed or not, then I can like probably say the digit is equal to the last two digits, right? So it should be -2 plus -1. All right. So this is the last two digits. Now let's see what the data looks like. Alright, so of course we've got a lot more value right now, but we have the value for all the parties. Now let's plug this in into the Excel sheet, into a chart, and see what comes out. Okay. Once again, let's start with okay. Oops, sorry. Okay, I have a new sheet, and once again, what is that? Digit, and I have the count. All right, I'm going to bold, center, and I'm going to create a chart having 99 numbers here. I'm sorry, 100 numbers here. All right, I'll say insert chart. Yes, a column chart. Go to the next one. Yeah, that's it. Count. Oh, it sort of learnt from that, man, which is great. I'm sorry, I'm trying to move it to the top. How the hell do I do that? Come on, man. Oh. Oh no, this is okay. LibreOffice.
Can you use arrow keys?
Can I?
I don't know.
No, I can't.
Oh.
Anyways, it's free, open source, so I don't want to complain about it. All right, so here's the thing. Let's look at AI/MIM's numbers, and you will see that they don't have a lot. I mean, some of the data and everything is missing, but that's fine. That's fine, right? I can still place the digit over here. Okay, now you will see that it's okay, right? I mean, it's either a 1 or a 2, but then again, they only fought in 20 seats because if you look at the count you have, it comes up to 20. If you look at the total count over here, they only fought in 20 seats. So it's not much to look at, but let's look at a party that had a lot of seats, right? 115 seats, like the like the BJP. So if we take them and we plug in the numbers here, say okay, you'll see that they are spread across a mean, and they are random, and there are none of them that basically shoot up into anything. You don't see anything like 93 is like suddenly all of a sudden sticks out or anything, right? Let's look at, I think it was the RJD. No, it was the RJD that had the most numbers, right? All right. So once again, Indian National Congress, not a lot of seats. Janata Dal United, Lok Jan Shakti, Rashtriya Janata Dal. Let's look at their numbers also. See what it looks like. Oh, come on. The same. They look exactly the same. The most surprising, I think, would be a total, right? All of the parties, all of the constituencies, all of the counts. Let's see what that looks like. Right?
That looks very even.
That looks very even. I mean, even random
spread evenly.
It is spread evenly. All right.
Yeah.
So I think this is one way of us telling that there is probably nothing fishy about the whole Bihar election. I know there's been a lot of noise about EVM fraud, EVM fraud, rigging, and all of those things. I think we have sufficiently shown that there is probably not a lot of rigging or anything that has happened. That being said, even if you're not interested in the politics of it, I think this is a good exercise for everyone to show. I mean, at least we got to show you how to extract the results data out of the Election Commission website.
Yes.
So right now the Election Commission website doesn't have this data at all put into Excel form or CSV form as they have done for the previous elections. I think they will do it in due course of time.
Okay.
But if you want to do your own analysis, find out things like how many people have lost their deposit and all of those things, I think it's a good way to extract the data. This is a good exercise in showing you how to extract the Election Commission data, save it into probably a CSV file, and then do whatever process you want to do with it. So that's I think that's about it that we had for this episode. I really hope it was interesting. It's an interesting exercise in Python in reading a URL, parsing HTML, saving it into data. And everything. So thank you, and join us back next week. Yes.
Happy Diwali.
Hey, happy Diwali. Yes. Hey, and like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.